The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello everybody and welcome to AOC Gaming's League of Champions powered by VRRC. You're here at the opening round of the touring car, which is in fact the second series of the entire League of Champions. We're at the beautiful and lovely looking Donington Park with 60 minutes of practice that the drivers are currently underway, qualifying for 15 minutes, which we'll soon jump into, and then two 20-minute races, the second of which is obviously a reverse grid just like the Ginettas were a couple of weeks ago. Alongside me as per usual is Dave Marshall, which shall be absolutely thrilling here. Donington, finally a track I'm used to, Dave, and it's going to be encouraging, fantastic racing, I'm sure.
Yeah, and especially the fact, you know, you mentioned we're at the GP loop, not the national, and I often think the GP loop just lends itself to slightly better racing, you know, there's slightly more time for good overtakes there and things like that.
There is indeed, and if you're wondering what on earth the League of Champions is, if you're new to the series, where have you been? The Ginetta Super Cup was 4 frantic weeks with a fantastic finishing round a couple of weeks ago as well, but we're on to the touring cars, a new car for all of these drivers to enjoy. It has been used on the League of Champions before now, but as you can see on the calendar at the bottom of your screen, we are at Donington Park, followed by Magione, Imola, and then the Red Bull Ring. I'm never sure Dave had to say Magione, but I'm going to go for that one.
Yeah, Magione, Magoni, yeah, whichever one it is, but, you know, what a track that is. I'm really looking forward to the second round. It's also going to be the first round where we have the weight on board of these cars, but it's a bit like a big go-kart track for big cars, so really looking forward to that.
Fantastic as well, a track that maybe not a lot of the drivers have experienced before, hence why I don't even know how to pronounce the name of it, whereas Donington, Imola and Red Bull Ring should all be fairly familiar to nearly all drivers up and down the country, but you can take us through what on earth these drivers are competing for, Dave.
Yeah, so, you know, in each individual championship, so Ginetta's already happened, but, you know, in this touring car, first place prize is one of our SR5 chassis in either red, blue or black. phenomenal chassis. Second place, still a really great chassis, proper sturdy SR3 chassis. And then, as you can see on the screen, third place prize is one of our racing seats that you can go either between a GT seat or an F1, hence the name GT F1 seat. And you can get that in lovely pink as well for you, Jack.
Absolutely, yeah. And then we've got some membership prizes along the way as well for those drivers who haven't quite hit the mark with the top 3.
Yeah, exactly that. You know, it's nice to reward the drivers, and we've really tried to give them as much to win as possible. You know, all the prize all the way down to 8th place. So yeah, you know, win a VRRC membership. You know, and that helps with discounts regarding the shop or entries into future championships.
Does indeed. And speaking of drivers who don't necessarily hit the podium mark, there's always opportunity to win a Power Max valeting kit for driver of the round. And of course, Dave, this doesn't necessarily need to be the fastest driver. Sometimes it is, because they've come up and surprised us and they've had an absolute flying round. Sometimes it's the cleanest driver. Sometimes it's the driver that's entertained us the most, isn't it? But the point is, it's one that's captured our eye for one reason or another, and you win a full valeting kit supplied by Power Max, one of our fantastic sponsors, around the region of about £40 as well. This is worth, so brilliant to have a lot of these sort of sponsors included and bringing us fantastic prizes.
Yeah, exactly that. And you know, I'm going to touch on this already. You know, in pre-practice at the moment, Andy Dorman's actually one of them drivers that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on today. Really impressed me throughout practice, and interested to see what he can do in qualifying, especially race 1.
Yeah, indeed, and I think we can actually have a look at potentially what the recap of the Ginetta final results as well, because obviously we're talking about the prizes here, there, and everywhere, but they're prizes for every 4 weeks, so every sort of small series, and you can see on the screen the championship standings from the Ginetta Super Cup. Ryan Elliott took the overall victory with, obviously, he's quick in the touring car as well, you just mentioned there, Dave, but Jack McIntyre in second place, Max Edmunson as well in third, so fantastic to have these guys coming back as well. I believe Max Edmunson maybe not be here tonight, but hopefully a lot of the drivers you see in the top 10 there will be with us for the touring cars throughout the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, exactly that. And you know, if we can go back to that previous graphic on screen there, you'll see that we have a thing where at the end of all 4 championships, it all goes towards a big finale. So the people that are in 1st to 10th place in the overall league standings, that's what you can win. 1st, 2nd and 3rd, AccuForce direct drive wheel, one of our fantastic developed OBP esports pedals, and AOC, you know, our championship sponsor, providing 3rd place with a curved display. But then not to miss out, race 2 is the 11th to 20th place, so there's another 3 opportunities to win prizes. I mean, how many prizes can we have in this championship?
I'm very much looking forward to getting the knock at the door where I get my Sim Race 5, to be honest. They seem to be giving them away to everybody. Why not give it away to us? But no, they are brilliant chassis, and hopefully will be fantastic for anybody who comes lucky enough to win them. Not only that, of course, we are here with VRRC. This obviously League of Champions is powered by VRRC, and they have a fantastic product in the Academy as well that we just want to plug, don't we, Dave? Because it kicked off a couple of weeks ago, and it's been going from strength to strength.
Yeah, so a lot of drivers are probably looking at League of Champions going, well, them drivers are running very, very quickly, and I don't know whether I'm up to that standard. You know, maybe would knock my confidence a little bit. Well, this is exactly why we set up the Academy. You know, it's a championship really designed that you can go in and enter, and it's, you know, reserved only for drivers looking for improvement, and pro drivers aren't allowed to enter, which is really nice as well. So you can see four different disciplines there: MX5, TT, Caterham and Formula 4, but all on the same track, so you don't have to learn the tracks every week in, week out. It's just literally trying to learn the car. So if you want to get involved with that side of thing, make sure you jump on our Facebook or on our Discord to get involved.
Yeah, and if you do want to express an interest, then by all means drop a comment in the chat. But we'll go on about it a little bit more in detail a little bit later on. But first, we're going to actually have Dave give us a hot lap in the touring car around Donington. So if you want to have a quick lesson, well, it's coming up.
So here we are across the line for round 1 here at Donington. What a track it is, with to see use all of the pit exit here to get as much advantage in turn 1 as possible. Try not to slip off the curb on exit there. The tight diff here really will pull you into the grass there if you slip off the edge of that. Down the crane of curves, trying to hang as far left as possible, getting off the brakes to allow the car to rotate up through the old hairpin. We're going to carry 5th all the way up the hill here. It's really quite deceivingly steep here, so any momentum lost there really does hinder you. See into turn 7, quite a shallow line, yet again the same as turn 1, trying not to push the exit too hard. In towards Coppice, for me one of the hardest corners to spot an apex, up and over the crest, very blind there, but you can see the dampers soaking up the inside curve there, very well indeed, a very sophisticated set of dampers. In towards the chicane here, this is where in qualifying you're really going to try and use everything you can, just staying within track limits, keeping a tyre within that painted curve in there, maximum speed through the chicane. Down to the hairpin here, second to last corner. Oh, a slight blip of the over rev there on the engine. My apologies to the engine there. You hear how tight the diff is there, trying to blend in the throttle on the exit of the corner, trying not to just light that inside wheel up. Same again here, third gear, you're just going to blend the throttle in and then absolutely mash it, let the diff do its job, help lock up them wheels and really drive you around the corner all the way to the finish line.
And as you can see, after that fantastic hot lap demonstration, a few of the drivers are trying to put those exact teachings into play here. Dave, we've got about 15 minutes of qualifying, but of course, because we had that hot lap, we've missed a couple of minutes, but no real hot laps as of yet. You can see they're using all that pit exit, aren't they, going all the way across. Probably wouldn't get away with that in real life, but then again, we're not under the watchful eyes of Mr. Palmer this time, so we don't have to worry about any of that track limit nonsense. It's been sort of dictated by the game, and the game only, isn't it, tonight?
Yeah, exactly that. And, you know, Ryan Elliott hasn't hung round, has he? The first proper flying lap at 32.0, so that was about a second quicker than the hot lap you've just watched by me. Yeah, Ryan is really pushing the limits of this car, and he's absolutely flying at the moment. So I've got, you know, a good bet on that. I think Ryan will probably take pole here, but actually Dan Zelos, a driver who's probably put in one of the least amount of practice laps, literally walked through the door about half an hour ago, has managed to go straight away into P2, so very impressive to pick it up that quickly.
Yeah, and actually looking at his best lap time as well there, the 1:32.5, realistically that's good enough for top 4 out of the hundreds of lap times that we had out of practice. So Zelos will only probably get quicker as well by the looks of it. Here is Andy Dorman with the Great British flag, obviously, on the United Kingdom flag on the front of it, and he's got to be one of those drivers that you mentioned before, isn't he? Obviously driver of the day potentially, but you've tipped him for an opportunity for some sort of podium finishes.
Yeah, I just think it's one of them drivers who is really, really impressing on actual lap time. It's just maybe he's lacking slightly in that aggression at the start, but it's one of them things. And I must point out, the front of his car does look like something sort of splattered on the front, doesn't it? And sort of gone either way.
Yeah, and it's a Union Jack, actually, as well. I completely had a mind blank before, and actually Tom O'Farrell, who's controlling the stream and controlling the cameras for us this evening, and always does since the League of Champions second season has come about, does a fantastic job, has just corrected me on that one. So, yeah, luckily that's my mind just went blank, unfortunately. But, yeah.
We all knew what you meant. We all knew what you meant.
Scott Bugner, though, we've got a fair few new drivers, haven't we? Scott Bugner's not one of them. We have Konstantin Kletzer. He's up there. He's in 13th place at the moment. Just having a look, I think Scott Thorne, I believe, is in 8th place at the moment. He's new to the championship. And we have one more who was Paolo Tempera as well. So a couple of drivers with fantastic names. Paolo Tempera and Konstantin Kletzer. Fantastic to say.
Yeah, you know, these are drivers that we've seen them in VRRC before, and the touring car always just seems to be the event that they go, I want to be a back part of that a bit again. So yeah, really good to see a lot of fresh faces. I think we lost maybe 6 drivers that did the Ginetta, but then we've gained them back with different drivers. So really good to see the community grow and keep fresh faces in the grid.
Well, a lot of the drivers we lost as well, actually. Statistically, yes, we did lose 6 of them, but some of them didn't even take part at all, or did 2 laps and then left for the championship, or only did 1 round at X, Y, and Z. So we've still got a fantastic core of drivers, and obviously Max Edmunson, one of the drivers that we would expect to be here for the rest of the touring car championship, is unfortunately off working elsewhere at the moment, so he's not actually going to be taking part this evening. But you can see a couple of the drivers there, Thor trying to get as much track as possible using the runoff there, getting it on the early power. And we're talking about obviously touring cars now. We had the Ginettas. It's a front-wheel drive car. It's a rear-wheel drive car jumping to a front-wheel drive car now, isn't it, Dave? And that provides different challenges. I mean, I, for instance, cannot for the life of me drive a front-wheel drive car. I can't even get it around the outlap, let alone a full flying lap. It's ridiculous. So it sort of tells us the biggest differences in the sort of front-wheel drive nature. Do you have to be aggressive on the front end, and a rear-wheel drive nature where you're balancing the back end?
Yeah, so for me, you know, with a front-wheel drive car, if you think of where the weight is in the car, you know, with a rear-wheel drive car, with the drive and rear axle at the back, the engine at the front, you more or less get cars that are 50-50. You hear BMW saying, you know, the ultimate driving experience because it's 50-50 weight balance all the time. So you've got that side of things. So with a front-wheel drive car, you know, you go quick into a corner on the brakes. The back end is very, very light, but the front is heavy, so you get a lot of rotation on entry. So it's one part to try and keep that balanced. The other real difficult part is if you're going around a corner in a rear-wheel drive, you know, you can use the throttle to actually rotate the car. In front-wheel drive, you definitely can't. You know, you plant your foot and the car, you know, the diff will lock up and it'll want to go straight on. So there's a lot more of patience, I think, required in a front-wheel drive car, and almost a slightly smoother technique. You'd be quite aggressive. I know people think with a rear-wheel drive car it's going to step out a lot, but if you look at Ash Sutton, you can actually be really aggressive with rear-wheel drive cars, whereas front-wheel drives tend to require a little bit more feeding in and, you know, keeping the momentum through the corners.
That'll explain why I can't drive them then. They require patience and a smoother driving style, basically. That's why explain why I can't do it for the life of me. But at the moment, I mean, Robbie Stapleford, the driver we're actually following now, is just pipped Dan Zelos, hasn't he? He's got himself a 132.485, so no one really getting close enough to Ryan Elliott, who is set an absolute flyer, by the way. He's gone quicker in this qualifying session than he did do in any of the practices that we saw him, or in that 60-minute practice session that we just had before this qualifying.
I am going to call him out though, Jack. I am going to call him out.
You were.
So I did spot in the practice session beforehand, he got a really good run through the chicane, and I thought, well, that was particularly good. And then he did it the next lap, but he kept braking after the chicane. So I'm going to call him out if he gets pole, because I think he was holding a little bit back from posting what time he'd actually do, which, you know, we see happen all the time in British touring cars. You know, drivers either balancing the car up or turning the boost down a little bit just so they're not showing all of the cards straight away. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Ryan Elliott. You know, he was consistently doing 32.2, 32.3 first lap in qualifying, 32.0 on the board, really playing that mind game of just going, right, that's what lap I can do, guys, catch up.
Yeah, it's really a sucker punch, isn't it? If you spent a lot of laps, obviously, trying to get towards that low 132, and you think, okay, I can get a 132, 133, maybe Elliott will make a mistake or something like that in qualifying. It's only 15 minutes. He might want to rotate the tyres and all that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, he goes out first lap, sticks it in 2 tenths quicker than he has gone before. And you just think, I don't know if I've got that in my locker. You know, I don't think pole's going to be realistic for me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the race is going to go along the same route, does it? You can always get some kind of advantage in a race in terms of if you try and get someone off the start, or if you're trying to put pressure on them, make them go wide, go off their line. All these sort of things come into play, and you know, there's all for being a one-lap flying sort of pony, a bit like Charles Leclerc back in Baku. You know, he qualifies on pole position, ends up 5th by the 2nd lap or whatever it was. You know, it's they'll be hoping that similar story plays out today, I'm sure. However, we've seen that Ryan Elliott, he won the Ginettas. It's unlikely, I'll be honest. Jack McIntyre, though, he's in 3rd place, and he was part of that fantastic finale, wasn't he, where there was about 7 drivers who could all finish in 3rd or 2nd to try and get that last sim rig position. Oh, who's that who's just flown off the circuit there? I think that was PRE. It was, in fact, it was Nick Press Kenny Press, actually. Sorry, my apologies. My stream's a little bit laggy. And he just went straight off at Old Hairpin. A difficult corner, Old Hairpin. I imagine in the front wheel drive, particularly difficult.
So back to what I was saying before, maybe that was a case of, you've got to be quite early on the brakes there at Old Hairpin to get the car rotated, but it's very easy for that back left corner just to dip the grass as you go to rotate in, and if it does that, you are a passenger, as we just saw there. You can see Callum Newsham, some people's probably, actually I was just about to say, wondering what he's doing there to set the lap up, but I believe he actually has just ran wide and stalled the car by the looks of it. Dan Zelos, yet again, look. Actually, Jordan Brennan just pipping Dan Zelos. I was going to say he was in 4th place there. Jordan Brennan actually putting a lap time in to go 5th. But there's, who's that? Let's just put it in 3rd. Scott Bugner. What an impressive drive he is. Putting it in 3rd place. What a great looking car that is as well. Splitting the 2 Zancho cars 2nd and 4th place.
Yeah, great lap by Bugner there for sure. He improved on all 3 sectors. We'll be seeing if he can do a similar sort of a repeat of that one and maybe get another 10th or 2 out of the car and see if he can upset Robbie Stapleford, because to be honest, he's less than a 10th of a second behind Stapleford. Ryan Elliott has gone slightly slower in Sector 1, but he's just gone green in Sector 2, so expect to see Ryan Elliott maybe extending. Could he jump into the 131s? It would be a pretty miraculous lap if he did. But if there's anybody on the grid at the moment who would do, it's probably going to be him, although he looks like he's just slowing up, letting a driver through there. So it's not going to be this lap for Ryan Elliott, but he doesn't exactly need to push it, does he?
No, so I'm actually wondering whether this is a bit of a case of if he knows he's not on a lap, whether he's just backing off to let his tyres cool down a little bit. You can see he's running very wide in that corner just to give him the best exit possible in the last corner. It's a really common thing that we'll see the majority of the drivers doing. But yeah, the front left tyre gets a real workout round here. So I wonder whether down that back straight, he's just making sure he gets them tyres in the right temperature, making sure they're cool enough that it allows him to do a good pushing lap without them properly overheating. So fair play, good racecraft that is.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mentioned obviously track limits before and all that sort of thing, because MSV are famous for their track limits with their sensors on the outside and everything like that. But that last corner, it's taking the mick a little bit, isn't it? Because you are basically extending the front straight almost, aren't you?
Yeah, it is a little bit, it's maybe taking the mick a little bit, but the amount of drivers that are doing it, I think we're going to let it by. But it's just one of them things where drivers look for every advantage they possibly can. And, yeah, why not use them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we need to make sure that obviously that everybody's a fair playing field. But let's face it, it's not going to be that way in the race, is it? Nobody's going to go out that wide to try and get a long run into the first corner. So as long as there's no one behind them in qualifying, it's all fair game, isn't it? Really? Who else have we got to be having a look at? Callum Newsham. At the moment, he's down in 7th place. We'll just go back to Callum in a second, because Ryan Elliott has gone purple in Sector 2. So Sector 1 may not have been quite as quick, even if he did start the lap off a very wide last corner. But currently on purple Sector 2, let's see what he can do. He's 0.3 of a second faster than Robbie Stapleford, but I think he's just giving up the ghost again.
He's backed out of it again. I don't quite understand what it is. Maybe he's just not getting the run through the chicane that he needs to try and beat his lap. So, yeah, not quite sure on that. But look at this, Andy Dorman up into 8th place, just behind Callum Newsham. But look at how close the times are. You've got, yes, a 0.3 of a gap to Ryan Elliott at the top. 2 drivers within 0.3, 4 drivers within 0.4. The further 2 drivers there, 0.6 behind. So, you're talking 8 drivers separated by 0.6, but realistically, it's between 2nd and 8th, 0.3 of a second separating all them drivers. It is incredibly close as qualifying here comes to a finish.
Yeah, and a few drivers pulling off early. I don't think they are necessarily crashing. They're just sort of thinking, oh, maybe I'll just pull off and sort of go into the pits via the in-game screens. Obviously, it's one of the advantages of sort of the simulator rather than real-life racing, as well as all these track limits and this sort of extra goes that you can get if you do crash in qualifying, meaning you can really push it to the very, very limit. Scott Bugner's crossed the line. He's in 4th place. Jack McIntyre to 2nd. And I think that's a new position gain for McIntyre, isn't it? Stapleford was there before.
Yeah, he's just managed to pip his teammate Robbie Stapleford there to 2nd place. Only just. But I tell you what, if there's any driver who's going to give him a push straight away from the line, Jack Max, that driver. Jack and Robbie will be both trying to work together here to get past Ryan as quickly and as early in this race as possible.
Yeah, indeed. Both of the Zancho Sim Sport drivers performed strongly in the Ginettas, but probably wasn't quite the start of the championship that they were hoping for. They're hoping for a more positive one for the pair of them in this round, I'm sure, and try and give themselves the best opportunity to use teamwork to their advantage as they go across the line. It looks like we've got Ryan Elliott in the comms box because we want to have a chat to our pole sitter, Ryan Elliott, not only Ginetta champion, now pole for the touring cars. This is a good start for you, isn't it?
Perfect start. I mean, pole by just, what, over a tenth? Not bad. Or just under a tenth, sorry. Not bad. It's good redemption.
You kept pulling out good Sector 2s. Maybe Sector 1 wasn't ever quite as hot as you did on your flying lap, but your Sector 2s, you pulled out some purples, some greens, but you always seem to slow up on the Sector 3. What was the sort of story behind that? Could you not quite hook up Sector 3 or something?
Sector 3 is quite commitment based, so you've got obviously the chicane and then the 2 hairpins, so three really key corners, and it's really hard to get them hooked up. I mean, if I'd managed to keep my perfect first, second sector together, like going through the final, another tenth and a half in that lap. But again, just happy to be on pole. It's another point in the bag. I'm already thinking the long game. But yeah, just look forward. Hopefully, have a clean race 1. Fastest lap would be lovely as well too.
We were just having a chat, actually, because we were impressed that Jack McIntyre in his final lap went up to second, but actually he's been bumped down to third because Jordan Brennan has just gone slightly under a tenth of a second behind you now. So it may not be as clear distance as you were thinking originally. Maybe you have more consistent lap times under your belt, don't get me wrong, but Jordan Brennan looks like on pace he could potentially cause a little bit of a headache. It's not going to be quite as easy, is it?
Well, I didn't notice it myself until last second, but hopefully it becomes, obviously it's not just a hot lapping competition, the race is about putting it together over 20 minutes, so hopefully I can do a little bit more consistent times and just pull away just a slight lead.
Well, absolutely. Well, we'll wish you luck, Ryan. Congratulations on the pole position. We'll potentially be having a chat to you after race 1 or even race 2 if race 1 doesn't go your way, which I'm sure you won't let that happen. But good luck for the both of the evenings, and we'll speak to you later.
Thank you.
And that was Ryan Elliott there, Dave. But I touched on it with Ryan there. An impressive lap right at the end there for Jordan Brennan, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, it caught me a bit off guard. I was ready to, question Ryan about Jack McIntyre, and then Jordan goes and puts in a lap in within a tenth. I mean, for a driver, I think he's probably looking at that a little bit more like now, where he had a good gap there, and then suddenly Jordan's got a bit of pace, and that's, you're talking only a tenth off. I mean, Ryan is saying he had a tenth and a half there. Maybe Jordan felt like he had a bit more time. So this, I tell you what, this is going to be really down to the wire, and I'm really looking forward to turn 1. Turn 1 could be a real do or dive moment for Jordan to go, right, maybe don't have quite enough pace, but I'm going to go for the gap.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see which side, because I'm not entirely sure which side of the track Ryan Elliott and pole position will have. They might be slightly ahead but be on the outside, in which case Jordan Brennan might have a look up the inside, or Elliott might be on the inside. I'm not entirely sure. Do you have any insight?
Yeah, so Ryan will be on the inside of the corner leading the pack. There we go on screen. So yeah, he's going to be slightly ahead of Jordan. So it's always one of these where if he gets a good enough start, is he brave enough to open up that corner and keep his advantage and drive it through? Or if he defends, then it backs Jordan up a bit and it then just groups that pack up a little bit. So it's going to be really a key of how quickly he can judge how good of a start he's had over Jordan Brennan and how committed Jordan's going to be on them brakes and whether he's going to be a threat at all in the braking zone.
Yeah, exactly. And as we've got about 2 minutes left to go before the start of this evening's antics, we'll just remind you that, of course, if you want to get involved with any of the League of Champions or any of the championships provided by VRRC, but not necessarily thinking you're going to be as quick as the League of Champions, and there is, of course, the Academy powered by VRRC, where people like Dave Marshall, my co-commentator for this evening, and a lot of the drivers that you see on screen will be helping you get up to speed in a whole plethora of cars, including Formula 4s, TT Cups, Mazda MX-5, and Caterham for 20 yards. And as Juan Manuel Fangio once said, you must always strive to be the best, but never believe that you are. And that's exactly what the Academy is based around. If you think that you can improve slightly on the sim and you want to put the time and the effort in, listen to some more experienced drivers and take your racing to the next level, then please do get in touch with any of the social medias powered by VRRC, and we can get you on the Academy grid for Monday nights as well, which I believe, Dave, I think you co-commentate on as well, don't you?
I do, yeah, and actually that's sort of what led us to have a look at Andy Dorman, because I've noticed Andy Dorman, especially in the Academy, as you know, since the first round, has really started to progress his lap times. You know, really a driver that's impressed me a lot regarding his progress. So yeah, very impressive to see. As we're just scrolling through our designs behind the SimRace 3 chassis there in red, you can see it's one of them designs where it allows you to bolt any seat onto it. But you know, our GT4 seat you can build into a package or buy it separately as well. So we offer 3 base packages at different price ranges as well. That are basically what we call a key turn package, which basically means it arrives at your door. We get one of our installers to set it up in your house. It's all ready to go. You literally sit down on it and everything's there done for you, ready for it.
Absolutely, and of course the SimRace 5 as well, a fantastic chassis that these guys are going to be competing for. Speaking of which, competing is the name of the game in the next minute, isn't it? Because the drivers are on the grid, they're getting revved up, literally and virtually, to get racing once again for the first 20-minute race here. And obviously this will dictate the starting grid for the second race, albeit it will be a top 10 reverse grid. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong there, Dave.
No, you're right. Yep.
Yeah, there we go. I commentate on a lot of series, and they all do different variants of reverse grid. So glad to see I got that one right at least. Ryan Elliott on pole position. Jordan Brennan less than a tenth of a second behind him in qualifying, but only pulled 1 lap out. What can he do to try and answer the opportunity of Ryan Elliott into the first corner? We'll soon see. Don't mistake that the Zancho Simsport drivers from row number 2 will be there as well. 5 lights, engines are revving, and we're racing for the first time here on a Tuesday night in the AOC Gaming League of Champions, powered by VRRC. It's a look to the inside by Stapleford on his teammate already. McIntyre looks confident that he's not going to be attacked as he goes wide for the racing line, but he is being attacked. Further down the order, we see Tempora going a little bit wide by the looks of it on the outside of the circuit, but McIntyre's got ahead of Stapleford. But look at this, Elliott and Brennan going side by side. Brennan's on the outside of the grain of curves. That's going to be the inside for the old hairpin, and it's a fantastic move if you can make it stick, but Elliott provides a fantastic run around the outside. Here comes Zancho.
Yeah, what an outstanding start that was there. Really, really clean start. And look at this 4-way battle. Oh, quite an aggressive turning there. But Jordan's held his own there up the inside. And who's this that's followed him through? I believe that's Jack Mac who's followed him through. And Dan Zelos, look, is getting in the action as well. So Ryan Elliott's got to be careful here that he doesn't lose out on 2 or possibly even 3 places here.
How many times have we said that a driver will need to show his nose right at the beginning of the race if he's got any chance of beating the outright pole sitter? And there's contact in the background. It's front wheel drive. Keep your foot in there, Ryan Elliott. It was Elliott. I thought it was another driver, but Elliott's dropping down the order like a stone. He's already facing an opportunity to fall out of the top 10 as Jordan Brennan leads the way. McIntyre, Stapleford, Zelos, Bugner, Newsham, Thorne. I can't quite say. I think it's Mick Sutton, Ryan Elliott, and Andy Dorman in top 10. Now Ryan Elliott goes past Scott Thorne because I think he goes a little bit wide. But all of a sudden, there's a huge shake-up. This first lap has been absolutely sensational as Zelos gives a little tap up the backside.
Yeah, I believe that's actually Scott Thorne. It is misleading just because of the 2 orange cars. But yeah, Jordan Brennan out front here. It'd be interesting to see whether he can pull any sort of gap. But look who's in front of Ryan Elliott here. Mick Sutton, another driver part of the Academy, and another driver that's really starting to bring his aid game, running now in the top 7. You know, this was a driver, you know, you only talking about 6 months ago was running like sort of 15th place. You know, a driver really starting to get the grips with sim racing, and it's really nice to see him running this top 10.
It is indeed, isn't it? And it's also worth noting, here goes Ryan Elliott looking up the inside. It's not going to happen there unless there's a little bit of contact, which there is. kept his foot in Mick Sutton, which is why he kept it on the straight and narrow, but it's not going to be straight and narrow anymore, and in fact it's going to be a very bent car, I fear, as he goes wide and off, and he's going to join. Oh, that's going to be a little bit of a touch and go situation of whether or not he gets back on cleanly. I think he's taken off Press as well. Yeah, Press has gone off the back of the end of the circuit as well into the gravel shack, which is unfortunate. Zancho Supersport are currently second and third. Here's Callum Newsham. Now, he is ahead of Ryan Elliott, and we know how much of a racer Callum Newsham is. He's hoping for a better time in the sim than he had in real life racing at the weekend at Snetterton, that's for sure. Looking at the inside of Scott Bugner, I think Bugner saw that one coming as mirrors, decided to fly a little bit of momentum around the outside because he knows he's going to have the opportunity to defend into the final corner, but he's not even needed to defend that much, has he? Because Bugner had fantastic speed off the penultimate and into the final hairpin. Across the line they go. It's still Bugner in 5th place. Callum Newsham fighting for top 6. Ryan Elliott will be chasing them down. As much as they enjoy the fighting, it will slow them down horrifically and give the opportunity for Elliott to maybe get back in to the mix. But Brennan is leading from Jack McIntyre now and Robbie Stapleford, but Stapleford seems to have just dropped off a touch as they come down Craner curves into the old hairpin. It's Brennan leading.
Yeah, you know what, this might play a little bit into Robbie's favour. It's hard to tell, but, you know, these cars do struggle with tyre temps, and we might be seeing Robbie here just finding his way, just being patient with the car and not letting his tyre temps get too quick. As we see Callum Newsham trying to go around the outside of Scott Bugner here, up towards the right-hander before the back straight, before the chicane. Is he going to tuck in here? Yes, he is. He's going to try and get up the inside here, putting him on the outside line, going down towards the chicane. I tell you what, this is where Callum Newsham here could be in real trouble here if he tries to brave this around the outside. You see Scott Bugner just trying to close the gap a little bit there on Callum Newsham, and look at Ryan Elliott just watching behind here, letting it all unfold. He's going to go for the gap up the inside here, going into the hairpin. He needs to make sure he doesn't run this too late on into the side of Scott Bugner.
Yeah, Callum Newsham came out of the defensive there, didn't he? Knew that he'd maybe lost the momentum through the chicane, sorry, and that meant he's just probably better off trying to just drop back into Ryan Elliott and maybe try and do what Ryan Elliott did to him, in which case, obviously, Elliott attacking Bugner, put them both off, and Newsham take advantage of that one. But yeah, I was having flashbacks there as I going through McLean's, because I've tried in real life to go around the outside of someone through McLean's and then keep my foot in around the outside of Coppins as well at the top of the hill, and it just never goes well. It didn't go well for me. Well done to Callum Newsham for backing out of it. But right at the bottom of the field here, you can still see there is fighting, isn't there, with Laramie and Thorpe, and all the way down for 14th position. And as Laramie just tries to take that apex, Thorpe has to come off the throttle, doesn't he, rather aggressively. And some aggressive driving all the way up and down. Callum Newsham's gone off of the old hairpin. Newsham, not entirely sure what happened to him, but we do know the consequences, and that is the fact that he's down to 11th place.
Yeah, I did actually catch wind of what happened there, and he just got his back wheels on the grass on the turn in, and yet again lost the back end, couldn't scrub the speed off, went into the gravel trap, and that's lost him a good chunk of places there. So unfortunately Callum Newsham was looking really consistent there on pace, very racy, but through a little error has lost significant paces and dropped back to 11th place, sorry.
Yeah, dropping outside the top 10 now, so it isn't quite going as he had planned or as he had hoped after the Snetterton weekend that he had. Unfortunately, in the minis didn't quite go his way either, but a lot of the drivers in the minis didn't quite have the championship opener that they were hoping for. It wasn't the opener, actually, sorry, that was the Ginetta's. But either way, still not the round that they were hoping for, with mechanical issues left, right and centre. We are having a look at sort of a mid-pack battle here for Scott Thorne, but here goes Ryan Elliott up the inside of Scott Bugner. Now, they don't need Callum Newsham to distract them anymore, which means Elliott can slot up the inside. A bit of a late move there. Bugner tries to carry momentum to defend it, and they're going towards Redgate now, the first corner. I think Bugner's going to potentially keep it. It's going to be a brave move for Elliott to try and fly around the outside, but here comes the cutback. He just about gets enough room, fantastically timed, down through the sort of 3 apexes, you should say. Probably Hollywood, I think, is the name of it. Down Craner curves. Elliott's going to be on the inside for old hairpin, which means it's going to be a done and dusted move, I fear, but he does cut it really rather, well, he takes a big slice of the cake, shall we say, as he cut the corner there. He's going to have to sort of come off the throttle because of it. He took the corner too tight, and this means that the opportunity for an outside move for Bugner around McLean's is there, but it's not going to happen. And Elliott really saw to it that he was going to fly all the speed through the exit there and make sure that Bugner was going to be on the gravel if he tried it. Oh, speaking of on the gravel,
yeah, Callum Newsham having another moment there. I didn't quite find out what happened there. I'm going to imagine that was maybe a collision with a car. So didn't see what happened there, but maybe we can find out. But look at this, Jack McIntyre with the moves on Jordan Brennan. So Jordan Brennan here under real pressure for the lead. This is all this is going to do is help Robbie Stapleford really close the gap. And actually, look at Dan Zelos, another driver impressed me at the moment, up to 4th place with little practice, but really holding on here.
He is indeed, and the more that these two fight, the more it'll invite Robbie Stapleford, but not only Stapleford as well, Dan Zelos, like you just mentioned. And to be honest, the rest of the field, Ryan Elliott has now got past Scott Bugner, obviously, and Bugner doesn't look like there's much of an opportunity to fight back, which means the top 4 could be fighting for a race win here. We've still got about 12 minutes left of this 20-minute race, not even halfway done, and these guys are absolutely fine. And I tell you what, Ryan Elliott will probably be thinking, oh, I know I've got consistent pace. I could probably put pole time laps in for a full 20 minutes. Well, he's only got to do it for 12 now to catch up to the back of this fight, which will slow everyone down, won't it? I'm not entirely sure what the previous lap times they're doing. They're a full second, really, off qualifying times, which means it's going to play right into the hands of Elliott, who's got clean air in front of him. This could well be a 5-way fight, and Elliott could still get his hand on the trophy.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I know we're concentrating on this fight at the front, but I tell you what I'm really interested to see. Callum Newsham currently in 14th place on the grid. Remember, it's a reverse 10 for race 2. I can see actually on the timing sheet, it's looked like he's made his way up into P13 already. So actually, this is a driver we've really got to watch for a potential reverse grid pole. And if he gets that job done, he could be a real contender for the race 2 win.
I think if you cast your mind back, Dave, to Ginetta's opening round of the League of Champions as well, all those 5 weeks ago, Callum Newsham, he obviously had a fantastic qualifying. I think he qualified in 2nd place, and then he jumped the start, didn't he? Which means it sort of ruins his evening there as well. So it's the opening round's not quite falling his way as Bugner looks a big look up the inside of Elliott, but it was going to be a big contact as well if he was going to try and launch from the inside, wasn't it? Because I don't think there was ever stopping Elliott taking that corner. And to be fair, I think if there was contact, I think Bugner would be the one that had to apologise.
Yeah, exactly that. But I tell you what, it was a brave move and it was well calculated, you noticed. Like, it was late on the brakes, but there was barely a touch there, if there was a touch there at all. So actually, Bugner doing a really good job here of putting good, consistent pressure on the back of Ryan. But talking about consistent pressure, look at this on screen. Jack Mack right on the bumper now of Jordan Brennan here. This is going to be a real play of, can Jack make Jordan position his car slightly differently and find a gap, find a way through, or is Jordan going to manage to just put his car right where he needs to here?
Well, that's the opportunity. That's the big question, isn't it, really? McIntyre is going to have a good run out of Coppice by the looks of it, down towards the chicane. It's so difficult to fly one up the inside here because it's relatively easy to defend. And to be honest, it's such a high-speed chicane on the sim as well, isn't it? Because there's no tyre barriers, there's no bollard to avoid or anything like that. It's, you know, you just sort of throw the car in. It's relatively easy to throw the car in and defend the position, isn't it? You don't want to have a high-speed impact. It's better to try and get the exit out of the chicane and into the penultimate corner or the final corner and get that hard braking zone up the inside.
Yeah, exactly that. I think Brennan here is doing a fantastic job, you know, holding Jack Mack off. And you'll notice they're not really losing that much time. Robbie hasn't managed to get right on the back of them. Zelos is maybe just starting to make headway. But if you look, Ryan Elliott, you know, looking at how fast he was in qualifying, isn't really closing the gap into this front four yet.
Yeah, and obviously, remember, if you are watching this and you are in the chat, you want to have your input, then you can help us find out who you think should be driver of the day as well, because that is something. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pole position, it doesn't have to be a fastest laps or a podium positions or anything like that. If you see a driver that's really standing out, or you're just here to support a driver and you want to make us look at them, do stick it in the chat and we will have a look and see what their performance is like. Maybe me and Dave will decide that they deserve driver of the day, which will gift them a fantastic Power Max balloting kit worth about £40. So do please get involved in the chat and let us know as well who we should be having a look at, who we should be talking about as well, because obviously we can only look at the fantastic action that's on our screen now. You guys might be looking at other people's perspectives as Jack McIntyre tries to fly loads of momentum into Jordan Brennan's backside, but he's not quite cracking, although he's got a good run here. Brennan's going defensive as McIntyre looks to use all the circuit on the outside to try and maybe get a cutback, but Brennan closes it off really well. And like you said before, Dave, he's just putting his car in every single right position, isn't he? He's not defending where he doesn't need to. For instance, now into the last corner. He knows where Brennan, although he probably should have done because he's gone deep. And here comes McIntyre trying to fly around the outside into Redgate.
He has indeed. Just when we were giving him all them compliments, and then he's gone deep into the last corner. But I tell you what, he's positioned his car well here. He's put Jack onto the outside. Yeah, as I thought, not really given that much room there. There was just enough on the outside there for Jack to just keep his car on. But the grass just pulled him a little bit wide. I tell you what, Brennan's going to have to do another 7 minutes of soaking up this pressure, because I don't think Jack's going anywhere anytime soon.
He is not indeed, and you can see visibly that Dan Zelos is closing up on the back of Robbie Stapleford, and the more that these guys battle, the closer that gap will get, won't it? McIntyre into McLean's, trying to get a good exit, and he's got a better one than Jordan Brennan, because Brennan's gone wide into the kitty litter, up into Coppice now. He's not going to have the apex as Brennan, but he is going to have good speed, because McIntyre didn't really force him wide as much as potentially he's wishing he did right now, because he's going to go down into the chicane and Brennan is still going to have the inside. I don't know, 7 minutes is a long time here to try and keep this lead for Jordan Brennan, but he just nudges McIntyre, his opponent, towards the kitty litter on the second apex. Here comes Robbie Stapleford up the inside, and here comes Dan Zelos looking up the inside, flying around the outside, and it's a brave move to try and do, but it looks like he's going to try and give it his best go. Jordan Brennan having to defend a little bit. Zelos is on the grass. Stapleford put Zelos on the grass through the penultimate corner and into the final one. He's still looking defensive. That's an aggressive defensive line there by Stapleford. He aimed at the apex and broke in a straight line, to be fair to him, but Zelos has really had his nose cut off there a couple of times.
Yeah, he will, and I tell you what, as a driver who won't need a second invitation for a move, Dan Zelos, you know, several years of very, very high-end real racing under his belt here, competing in the Mini JCW Challenge, and I tell you what, that racecraft is definitely shown here, looking at every invitation, and now look, he's got the outside line here, but it'll be the inside line going to the old hairpin. I don't imagine he'll back out this one, and as I thought, Robbie Stapleford there would have had to have back out to tuck in. Great move there on Dan Zelos. I tell you what, that's going to be up there with move of the day, that I reckon.
And who comes knocking on the door? It's Ryan Elliott, isn't he? After all this, Elliott now sees a potential podium, and not only a potential podium, but looks at the front too, Brennan and McIntyre, and the way that Stapleford and Zelos have been racing, I think Elliott will probably be keen to try and get a race win here back under his belt. But look at this, after contact between Stapleford and Zelos, all of a sudden Stapleford looks in his rearview mirrors, curses to the winds, because all of a sudden, pole position man, Ryan Elliott is recovering. He's already in the top 5. What can he do through the chicane? We know he's hooked it up well before. Dave, you saw him having to almost sandbag braking because he gets such a good run through it. And here is the evidence, because he brakes very late. He's gone too wide potentially because Dan Zelos has gone wide himself, which meant Elliott couldn't get the cutback. Stapleford back into the top 3. Zelos in 4th place. Elliott in 5th. Scott Buggan has come to join the party now, and what a party it is.
Yeah, how the world has them drivers just done that? So Dan Zelos went into the hairpin in 1st place. Then Ryan Elliott outbroke Robbie Stapleford and did him round the outside. And then Dan Zelos ran a little bit deep. Then Robbie Stapleford got the cutback and got both drivers. And then we've ended up with Dan Zelos still in front, Robbie Stapleford, as Ryan Elliott goes up the inside. Is he going to have the inside line go down crane of curves? He isn't. Dan Zelos just manages to fend that. And look at Scott Bugner. Scott Bugner must be thinking, this is not over. Yeah, I've got a chance of this yet.
Jordan Brennan and McIntyre, in my opinion, must be looking in the rearview mirrors and just think, okay, let's just take the points at this point, because these guys are absolutely scrapping. They're gifting them 1st and 2nd at the moment, even if they do start falling in over each other. But Elliott, you can see he's got so much pace up the hill there, going through McLean's now. He's ran wide a little bit, but as Zelos defends through Coppice, he's going to lead the cut back open, and a huge hit at the backside by Stapleford on Elliott. That's why he went into the back of Zelos. A Constantina effect that's really hurt Zelos, I fear, but it's hurt Elliott more as he comes on, and I think he's hit Stapleford. My screen's gone dead, Dave, tell me.
Yeah, I believe unfortunately there's been a rather big collision there. Stapleford's gone wide. Elliott's managed just to tuck back in behind Scott Bugner. You can see Robbie Stapleford there cutting the gravel just to try and play a little bit of catch-up game there. Meanwhile, Jordan Brennan and Jack Mack are still where they were taken off there, with a lot of Jack Mack's paint probably on the back of Brennan, just trying to push him, going, come on, let's go, let's go.
I'll tell you what, I told you before, Dave, that I was feeling a bit ill. My head has absolutely gone after this race. It's been fantastic stuff. And I can't believe, I mean, people who say that, you know, real life racing is, sim racing is just not as good as real life racing, need to go back and rewind about 30 seconds or a minute and a half, because this has been absolutely sensational stuff by the League of Champions drivers here for the first round of the touring cars as well. And to be honest, I don't know about you, Dave, I know you were watching at the weekend. This looks more like touring car driving than the stuff we saw at Snetterton.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, first race of a touring car this weekend was a bit dead, wasn't it? So, yeah, I mean, this is first race of the championship for the touring cars here. Remember, no ballast is applied yet. This is just raw outright speed. And look at the racing that we're getting here. So I just cannot wait until the ballast is applied. You know, it really jumbles the grid up. And yeah, oh, what racing this has been so far.
You're very proud of your ballast setup, aren't you, Dave? You spent a long time trying to figure out exactly the breakdown for the ballast.
Yeah, so we worked really quite hard on the ballast this season for touring car, and you know we were toying with the idea of how far it goes down to the top 12, the top 10, and I thought, you know what, realistically, why put it all the way down to 10th when, you know, you can put the ballast only on the top 6 and it'll probably do the job we want it to do. You know, we really just want it to bring the grid all closer together and allow every drive to have a good chance of trying to get a good solid podium, and then let, you know, the podium try and battle it out. As we see Jack Mac with a really big lunge. Look at Jordan with the cutback, the drive out. This is going to be a complete dead heat, I would have thought. In fact, it isn't. Jack Mac actually has been out-dragged by the Audi power down towards turn 1. I must point out that all these engines in the car are identical. In fact, the chassis underneath, even though the actual car on top looks different, the chassis underneath is identical on all the cars. So you can trust us when I say all these have identical performance regardless of the body or the shape of the car.
Yeah, exactly. There's no need for balance of performance if every single car has exactly the same performance to start with, isn't it? And exactly. that was a huge move up the inside, wasn't it, for McIntyre there? I think intentions shown early. He's not happy. Elliott's got passed up on Bugno, I think, for the top 4 now. But yeah, intentions shown fully, isn't it? This is going to be the final lap of the race. 30 seconds left, and I think because we're doing the GP loop, this will be it, which is potentially why McIntyre went for that such a big move. Here's Scott Thorne trying to catch Andy Dorman, and look at that, Robbie Stapleford struggling again around the outside of McLean's, and he's being hung out to driving into the apex of Coppice as well. His Callum Newsham not recovered quite so well as we thought he potentially did. He was 14th. He's in 11th at the moment. He's got Luke Weston ahead of him, and I don't think he's going to get that reverse grid pole, because obviously 10th place is the reverse grid pole. We've got another 20 minutes to keep up with here, people. So be sure to keep it pinned to wherever you're watching this from. But at the moment, Jordan Brennan has kept it pinned, that's for sure. He's done a fantastic race. He has looked vulnerable. There's no question about that. He has looked vulnerable, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that he's come across the line in first place at the opening round of the touring car for the AOC Gaming League of Champions Series 2. And it's Jordan Brennan who took the checkered flag in the lead of the race. He qualified on second. Jack McIntyre comes home in second place. Dan Zelos in third. Ryan Elliott qualified on pole position, had fantastic pacing practice and qualifying. Got hung out to dry a little bit in the first couple of laps, and that's why he ended up down in fourth, but a great recovery drive by him. And Scott Bugner's come in with the top 5 as well. I tell you what, driver of the day nomination, Scott Bugner, if he can repeat such a feat in race 2, we're looking at a driver who's well on his way to a power Max Valetin kit, I reckon.
Yeah, but in saying that, look who's in 6th place. Andy Dorman.
Oh.
You know, yet again, another standout drive. But for me as well, Dan Zelos has to be on the table there. The way he drove, the way he defended, the way he picked his overtakes, and to come away with the podium with the little seat time he's had in the car, what a fantastic effort that's been.
There we go then. So Bugner, Dorman and Zelos all pretty much on pole position, equally a pole position for the driver of the day. Do let us know what your opinions are in the chat as well. Who should we be having a look at for driver of the day? Obviously, Brennan and McIntyre has given us a fantastic show, which we always like to take into account. Ryan Elliott with a good recovery drive as well. And it all comes down to the second race as well. Who can repeat such feats that they did in race number 1 on the reverse grid, obviously, with the top 10, which will have Luke Weston starting on pole position. Callum Newsham's going to have an awful lot to do. He couldn't quite get to the reverse grid pole, which he was absolutely desperate for, I'm sure. So there's going to be an awful lot. But to run down the order, Jordan Brennan wins race number 1 here. Jack McIntyre in second place. Dan Zelos in third. Ryan Elliott in 4th, Scott Bugner in 5th, Andy Dorman 6th place, Thorn in 7th, Tempera. Sorry, I'm just going to have to get him up on a different screen. Tempera in 8th, Robbie Stapleford in 9th, Luke West in 10th, Callum Newsham 11th, Mick Sutton in 11th. Sorry, it's all getting a bit mixed up because the drivers are going into the pits at different stages, but you can see them on your screen now. And Dave, I believe you can have a chat to our podium position, man.
We can indeed. So we'll go straight to 3rd place. Dan Zelos, very, very little time in the car, but you've let you qualify and do the practice, and then you've gone straight into race pace and let your racecraft do the practice and come away with 3rd place.
Yeah, I mean, I think my day was made a little bit luckier when the pole sitter went off on lap 1, and it also split up the pack a little bit, which helped me get my groove a little bit, and then I was just getting my head down trying to catch the leaders. I was able to get past Robbie when everyone in front of me was battling, and I just defended with all my life, made the car as wide as I could, and was able to defend him off. So yeah, well done.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a moment there where, you all came into the last complex, into the last set of hairpins, and there was about 4 cars scrabbling all for the same place. I mean, how do you get your head around where to look, especially on a simulator? How do you place your car like that?
To be honest, I couldn't tell you how you do it. I think it's an experience of real life racing helps me there, and just trying to use a mirrors where you can, and also hoping that the people around you are gonna, going to give you the space, and you do the same for them. So it's about believing in your people you're up against, that they're going to act fairly to you, and you can race close like that without any contact.
Well, fantastic effort there in race 1, Dan. Looking forward to seeing how you do in race 2. And we'll move on to our P2 finisher, Jack Mac. There was a few opportunities there where it looked like you were going to bring home the win, but Jordan wasn't making it easy for you. He just kept fighting back, and unfortunately just managed to pip you going towards the line.
Yeah, that was a brilliant race. Credit to Jordan for keeping it ahead. I think I had a lot of pace, especially in the first half of the lap, but it's quite hard to pass there, apart from turn 1, and everywhere where he needed pace, he had it on the exit. So it was really tough, but yeah, brilliant race. It's the first race of 8, so yeah, chuffed with 2nd.
Yeah, I was going to say, if that's anything to go by, the way things are going to go, that race was absolutely fantastic. I know you probably only saw it from 2nd place, but yeah, huge race and respect between the grid. And as you say, when you're battling for 1st and 2nd place, the respect shown there from both drivers there, that's the sort of driving that puts a smile on your face, isn't it?
It's one of those moments where you really don't mind coming off 2nd best, because it was such good fun. I'd give it a big send into the last corner one time, but
we did see that
a little bit too deep, so I couldn't get it straight. But yeah, it was great. Hopefully race 2 will be the same.
Yeah, great effort there, Jack. And as I said to Dan, looking forward to seeing what you can do from 9th place on the grid here in race 2.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
We'll go to our P1 finisher. Probably weren't massively expecting that, but congratulations on taking the win there, Jordan.
Cheers, thank you. No, I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. Lap 1 wasn't the best. I got a few squeezes from Ryan, and it didn't end well for him. So, but I couldn't get in a groove. I just couldn't. I was so inconsistent with my lap times there, so I really struggled with that one. But yeah, it was a good battle with Jack there. That's fun.
That's really interesting to hear, actually, that you were struggling a bit for your consistency there. The one point I was wanting to find out just before we go to an advert here is regarding track limits. How were you finding it? Were you getting many cuts, or was it relatively easy to just maintain a steady line and not rack up too many of them?
It was fairly easy, to be fair. I think I ended up on 2 warnings, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah. It's awkward, because if the car behind you does a cut, then they'll get a massive run on you into the hairpin, so it's hard to manage it that way.
Oh, well, that's interesting to know anyway, Jordan, but huge congratulations on taking the win, and look forward to seeing what you can do in race 2.
Yes, thank you.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the second race here at Donington for the touring cars of the AOC Gaming League of Champions powered by VRRC. If you haven't seen race 1, well, where the hell were you? Because it was absolutely sensational. With any luck, race 2 will be just as frantic and hot and heavy under the collar for a lot of the drivers, but as the lights start to get under the way, we can get excited for a second bout of racing. The engine notes rise, and for the second time this evening on a Tuesday night, we can see that they're racing here. Luke Weston on pole position, obviously, after a reverse grid top 10. Robbie Stapleford means he starts on second place and has to be one of the favourites probably to get an early lead into the first corner. He doesn't quite get it into the first corner as Luke Weston looks good defensively, but Scott Thorne goes wide on the exit of T1. Andy Dorman, but here we go. Stapleford has already got his nose up the inside for Craner Curves. That means he's going to have the outside for Old Hairpin, but as Weston gets a little bit loose down Craner Curves, it is going to be Robbie Stapleford takes the race lead, but there's contact in the background. Andy Dorman's going backwards because he's gone backwards off of a Old Hairpin, and who's that as well? That's Simon Thorpe, unfortunately.
Thorpe, yeah, so unfortunately a few little spins or tags, but luckily it looks like Andy Dorman's managed to keep momentum and come back onto the track here. But I tell you what, other than that, how can you get so many tracks side by side round the same corner?
It's madness, isn't it? I mean, it's pure touring car magic that what we're watching here. And as I say, that the magic ends for Scott Thorne, unfortunately. He's going to go 3 wide into the chicane, which is something I've never advised any driver to do. For this exact reason, Scott Thorne flies into the barrier on the right-hand side, and a few other drivers, I think, has joined him as well. Kletz has gone and taken advantage. He's up to 12th place now, but Ryan Elliott up to 6th. After coming, in fact, I think he started about 6th place, actually, Ryan Elliott. Callum Newsham's gone from 11th place up to 7th. He didn't take advantage of the reverse grid, finishing in 11th place. Luke Weston's gone from 1st down to 3rd. Tempera, that is one of the new drivers, Paolo Tempera. He's up to 3rd place at the moment. 2nd place at the moment, sorry. My timing screen is a little bit different to the one on the screen at the moment. Jack McIntyre, he's in 9th with Jordan Brennan, the 2 drivers that were neck and neck for race number 1 victory, and neck to try and keep in the top 8.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to say it now. Driver that's really impressed me there. Look, Dan Zelos already up to 4th place. Not a scratch on his car. What a starter, and it really shown his racecraft of how we can get through the pack there.
Strong challenge for not only podium positions but driver of the day as well. He's looking for, he wants that balloting kit. He needs his car washed as Dan Zelos. He's heard it on the stream, and now he's going for the big guns, isn't he? He wants a podium position. To be fair, he's had good pace to try and provide himself with one, hasn't he? Luke Weston maybe didn't have the pace, and Tempera probably didn't quite have the pace in race number 1. So Zelos, probably just like Stapleford, has found himself in a good position. Everything's calmed down just a little bit more now, though, than when Stapleford took advantage. And Zelos will probably be hunting down to maybe pick off 1 or 2 drivers over the next 2 laps to get himself into that 2nd place. Ryan Elliott's up to 5th place ahead of Scott Bugner, a combination of overtakes that we've been talking about a lot this evening, as Elliott has been running around Scott Bugner for quite a long time. Here is Carroll just behind Mick Sutton out of the side that top 10, but obviously there's no race number 3. Here goes Zelos up the inside of Luke Weston. I said that he would take 1 or 2 laps just to pick the drivers off. Well, he's done exactly that, but he's ran wide, and he's forced Luke Weston wide as well, which has allowed probably the danger man of the entire evening, Ryan Elliott, around the outside, but Luke Weston has defended it well, and that's crucially put another car in between himself and Dan Zelos now as well. Luke Weston's still alongside, but Elliott has got a good run in towards Redgate now. He's going to be the inside. He's going to have the position, I fear. Yeah, there we go. Luke Weston having to just back out of that one, and Scott Bugner's going to take advantage. And here we go. I think Luke Weston's going to lose a lot of places here, Dave.
But you know what? He's holding his own really well here. Is that Jordan Brennan right up behind Luke Weston. Scott Bugner did a really good job to get through there, nice and cleanly. Good momentum, and actually Scott Bugner has got on the time sheet's got a really quite a good run here on the back of Scott Bugner.
He has indeed. Here is, in fact, there is Scott Bugner, isn't he? As Brennan got past Luke Weston as well, as a stream of drivers seem to be doing that. But you're right, Weston did do a good job, and he kept it clean as well, crucially, didn't he? Because at the end of the day, the reverse grid, you may get some people who don't quite have the pace of starting on the front row of the grid. The last thing you want is to see them crash out because people have he's put his car in some overzealous place, shall we say, trying to defend against the quick guys. But he's defending here, and he's defending fair, isn't he? Ahead of McIntyre, who just had to back out of it through the chicane and has ran wide, actually. And I think Callum Newsham Going to thank him very much for that one and maybe try and take his 7th place back. Heading new shot at the inside. He's going to try and avoid Weston, but that is just about good awareness there by Weston.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably one of them where he went for the move on Jack McIntyre and went, oh, hang on a minute, I might even get Luke Weston at the same time here. But actually, I don't think it's going to pay out because, look, Jack McIntyre has read that better, gone left of it, and actually managed to get up the inside of both of them. Is this going to end up going 3 wide, going down to turn 1? Although Luke Weston actually seems to have the advantage. Jack Max is going to go for the lunge up the inside. Watch Callum Newsham try and follow him through here, up the inside. Yeah, down Craner curves, tucking in behind. Little bump on exit, but nothing to worry about there. Exactly what I thought was going to happen. Brilliant reading of the road there, Callum Newsham.
Yeah, definitely the race experience in real life and the amount of sim racing that Callum Newsham's been doing coming into effect there, wasn't it? Not worrying about the fact that he didn't get the move pulled off initially or that he got overtaken by McIntyre, just using potentially the faster driver to do the work for him and carve open the space so he doesn't have to do it himself. Here goes Tempera ahead of Bugner. Bugner trying to go up the inside now of Coppis as well. Flash the lights. He's really forcing Tempera out wide there. A fantastic name that I just love saying is Tempera. I have to say, it's a good addition to this Touring Car Championship. And although, Dave, you did say that he's been around for a little while longer, but Zelos and Elliott going side by side into the, crucially, into the chicane as well. Here goes Tempera. He's fought off Bugner for now, but can Bugner get the better exit? Zelos has had to accept that he's going to be in 3rd place, just behind Elliott now, and Stapleford still in the lead of this race by a good couple of seconds. We're seeing Bugner. Oh, that's a massive move up the inside there by Jordan Brennan.
Yeah, great read of the road. A bit similar to Callum Newsham. Saw Bugner make the move there for him and then just followed him straight through. The job was already done because the gap was already there. But although I'm saying this, Paolo Tempera here really impressing me as well. You know, a driver that's got the reverse grid, but look at his lap times. On pace, he is holding with these drivers and driving very, very well indeed.
He absolutely is, and this is exactly what we love to see in the reverse grid, isn't it? 20 minutes is maybe a touch too long to try and keep that first position ahead of those fast lot, but what you want to do is see the drivers improve, learn a lot, get some racecraft under their belts, keep it clean, and maybe they'll come by the end of the season, they'll be just as strong as some of these other drivers, like we've seen Scott Bugner, like we've seen the likes of Luke Weston even. He's improved massively. Mick Sutton and Andy Dorman, all these drivers who sort of, come on leaps and bounds, especially the Ginettas. They were running right at the back, and at the end, you could argue they were touching base with 7th place, which was fantastic to see. And as we're sort of shooting down now towards the battle between Mick Sutton and Andy Carroll, this is exactly what we're talking about. Carroll going up the inside. Dorman maybe knew that he was going to lose out. Mick Sutton losing out there. Dorman taking advantage of another driver opening the door. It's exactly what we just saw before between Newsham, Weston and McIntyre, but just a little bit further down the grid and maybe a little bit slower.
Yeah, exactly that. And actually, I found it quite hard to distinguish Carroll there from Sutton. I didn't realise there was 2 cars that looked so similar. But yeah, Andy Dorman luckily putting the car between the 2. Actually saying that, look at Mick Sutton with the dive up the inside. Ran it a little bit wide, you see, but he might manage to get that power down a little bit better with that V instead of rolling on that diff. Is he going to go for a lunge up the inside of here? No, he's not. Andy Dorman defending for P11 here. This is where he really get his head down. I think he's probably got a little bit of pace here on Andy Carroll in front. But I tell you what, the racing further back in this pack here is still absolutely brilliant to watch. I almost wish we could just have 2 TVs and watch the front pack and the mid pack, eh?
Oh no, we need a picture-in-picture. We'll get Tom O'Farrell on that in a couple of weeks' time if you can get a new PC. But I tell you what, we're talking about Ryan Elliott getting through and Robbie and Dan Zelos before. Ryan Elliott, in the space of about a lap or 2, has taken a full second out of Robbie Stapleford. So there is going to be, although we'd love to see the battles in the background and the further back as well, there is going to be a race coming on. It's brewing for the race lead here. Stapleford, he's quick, but Ryan Elliott has been the class of the field in terms of flying lap pace, hasn't he? Although he's just not quite had it in the race. Let's see what happens here, because if Stapleford can hold him off, all of a sudden Zelos is rubbing his hands, and then Scott Bugner's looking for a podium. You get some really quick drivers all of a sudden backing up in each other, and you've got a fantastic race for the final 5 minutes, which is what I expect to see. Fully, as long as Stapleford can keep ahead of Ryan Elliott. Here goes Jordan Brennan. I said about Scott Bugner. Bugner going for that cutback. Here comes Brennan, though, to try and carry that momentum into the final corner on the inside. It's going to be a fairly difficult move. He's quite a long way back here. He's late on the brakes. Bugner going with that tight turn. But I tell you what, Dan, the racecraft, the racing respect that we've seen this evening has been utterly sublime, hasn't it? The Ginettas, maybe it could have been improved, but the touring cars have been fantastic, I think.
It really wasn't. I'm hoping I'm not going to eat my words here, but they're out that hairpin. You know, Jordan Brennan up the inside of Scott Bugner. It would have been so easy there for Jordan Brennan just to open his steering wheel, get on the power and run Scott Bugner out of road there, and he didn't. Give racing respect, and it's meant, look, he's been side by side the whole way through this track now, up the old hairpin. Is he going to have the run to pull alongside? I think he probably is. He might get actually a little helping hand here by Jack Mack, if Jack Mack will pull in. In fact, he isn't. He's going to try and make it 3 abreast going up into the right-hander. Jordan Brennan up the inside of Scott Bugner, and look, Callum Newsham's trailing along. Here he comes. He's going to have a look at this, and actually Jordan Brennan going slightly wide there. Jack Mack up the inside. Jordan Brennan might get the undercut here though and get back on the power slightly better. I tell you what, this is going to be a slipstream battle down towards the chicane.
I was expecting these lot to be joining the top 4 fight for the race lead, but the way they're going, they're not bothered about it, are they? They just want the 4th place here. Well, Scott Bugner, McIntyre chasing him down hard. Brennan trying to get that position back up the inside into the penultimate corner. Now the Melbourne Loop providing great action here this evening. The reason why we're using the GP Loop is because of overtaking like we're seeing here. It promotes fantastic opportunities for drivers up and down the field, and it's just a case of just late braking. Get a good run through the chicane, which is a difficult thing to do. Hook it up. You can always look at the inside of the Melbourne Loop, and here we go again. McIntyre and Brennan side by side. Bugner now just thinking, okay, I'll just use this lap. You guys fight. I want half a lap where I can just get away and start driving my own race. Just get into that rhythm again. And I tell you what, Dave, I'll tell you in a second, actually, because McIntyre has been forced wide by Jordan Brennan, and Newsham, I think, is there to have a little chat with him as well. Up the inside into Old Hairpin, he's going to be through the Carrera curves. Newsham was on the outside. He's forcing him slightly wide. I said about that racecraft and racing respect. I wouldn't go... It's touching borders, isn't it, here? But it's touring car racing is what we're watching.
Yeah, there's a few mirrors probably on order for a few of the cars here, but you know what? It's fair enough. The cars aren't losing a huge amount of advantage here. The drivers are rejoined the track, and you can see they're still level pegging. Callum Newsham there backing out of that there, not to hit into the side of Jack McIntyre. But I tell you what, he's got to watch out because Paolo is right up behind him now.
He is indeed, yeah, Paolo Tempera. But look at the inside here. Callum Newsham, that's brave into the chicane. Tempera is going to get a good run if he can just keep it calm and not get sucked into this fight. He hasn't done that fantastically, to be fair. So I'll just go back to the point that I was going to make before. Dave, I'll be honest, I've never been a fan of endurance racing. I've always been a sprint racing kind of guy. Since I started commentating, I've got a new respect for endurance racing. And actually, I've now started finding myself watching the Nürburgring 24 hour and stuff like that, and which I never used to do. But having said that, it's an appreciation for endurance racing. Sprint racing is its own devil, though, is it? It's fantastic. And it's why we choose 15, 20, 25-minute, half-an-hour races for the League of Champions, isn't it? Because it's fast, it's frantic, drivers going all out, and it's what we love to see.
Yeah, and for me, I don't know about yourself there, Jack, but for me, when we do a sprint race, we'll run 2 races back to back. It's qualifying, then 2 races. And for me, it just gives you a chance to have a refresh, a regroup, and go back on track and try again to repeat it. And that, for me, is, the real satisfaction. Endurance racing, I'm not going to lie, can get a bit laborious and a bit like, lap after lap. Sprint racing, you've just got to go all out and go as fast as you can for a full 20-minute stint.
You do indeed. Here we're actually looking at Mick Sutton and Scott Thorne, aren't we? Or is it Simon Thorne? Sorry, it's Simon.
It's confusing because there's Simon Thorpe and Scott Thorne, so 2 very similar names. But yeah, fantastic race here between him and Mick Sutton.
Yeah, apologies there, but my stream is coming in at about 380p this evening. My internet's struggling a little bit, so I am struggling to see it slightly. But it is brilliant. Just outside the top 10, doesn't matter. They're still enjoying themselves. And these sort of drivers are the drivers that you would expect to see in the academy as well, don't you? Because if the likes of Robbie Stapleford and Ryan Elliott came in, who, by the way, are now fighting for P1, if they came into the academy and said, oh, Dave, I want to join the academy, I want to learn a little bit more off you, you'd probably say, no, that's not really fair, or that's not really the point of why we're doing this. I'm not saying they would, because they're probably, they're pretty happy with the pace that they're performing, and the academy won't teach them a lot of that they already don't know. But it's designed for the people that are just outside the top 10 of the League of Champions and those who want to even get on the grid to compete, aren't they?
Yeah, as we see there, Robbie Stapleford that's that wheel on that grass that I said is really dangerous. He did very well not to lose the batting completely there. But yeah, I mean, if these drivers come along and say, Dave, I want a little bit of a hand, we offer coaching packages, we do one-to-one tuition that you can book through the virtual reality racing website. But yeah, the academy is aimed at the drivers that need the racecraft help, that really want to build up a grid not full of the pros that are lapping, a second and a half up the road. They want to race in a grid that they feel is more their average speed potential. So that's what we've really tried to cater for. And you can see Robbie Stapleford and Ryan are getting all the action they need. He right up in the front in first and second place. Ryan Elliott with a cheeky look up the inside. That was a bit of a half a move, if I'm honest. He sort of half committed to it, and I think Robbie Stapleford wasn't quite sure whether he was going to commit up the inside, but it was just enough. A little bit of Rubbins racing there, and look at this move here. Robbie Stapleford going, you know what? If you want to do a dive move, I'll do a dive move back. In fair play, Robbie Stapleford with great aggression. But I tell you what, Ryan Elliott cannot say that he wasn't expecting that, because he made that clear that he was putting the car up the inside there.
Yeah, I think all that racing respect may well just sort of go out the window, hopefully. They need to...
Oh, there. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, the racing mist needs to just come down a little bit, lads. Make sure they keep it clean. And if they do keep it clean, it's fantastic to watch. But here we go. Ryan Elliott right in the back. Down crane occurs on Robbie Stapleford. Hook up the back wheel. Try and get the apex. Stapleford doesn't quite manage it. Here goes Elliott, but it's so difficult to try and put your car somewhere that the other car isn't going to be because of that left kink. Even if you get a fantastic run out of old hairpin, it's not always destined to go ahead of the driver ahead, but we're just getting contact now, left, right and centre. Oh, this is turning a bit nasty, and that was unfortunately, it was written in the stars. I think that one, Dan Zelos, is probably going to be the one taking advantage of all of this. But it did seem that was sort of inevitable by the way that they were attacking each other there.
Yeah, that to me looked like maybe a little bit of a push to pass or push to make a little bit of room. And when the car straightened up, it just was a contact, unfortunately, left to right wheel on the back end, and that's what forced that collision. Ryan Elliott actually doing quite well to only lose one position out of that. As we see, Jordan Brennan up the inside of Scott Buckner. This battle is brilliant between these four drivers here. All drivers can't really seem to manage to get that gap. Callum Newsham finding a way up the inside of Jack McIntyre, but he's not going to have the speed to out-drag him up to this left-hander. Scott Buckner, is he going to have a look? He isn't going to quite have the overlap. Jack McIntyre's tucked in behind him again. And look at this. It's going to go for another lap with all four cars really battling really hard.
Yeah, I'm sure they can't see anything with all the cars that are around them, and they've done fantastically well to drive through the red mist that was between the two front drivers as well. So it's been absolutely awesome. Scott Buckner, though, I tell you what, he's been pretty sublime, hasn't he? I mean, he may not have the pace that the drivers behind him have, but the more they fall over each other and the harder he defends, the harder it is for them to get past and try and get any kind of pace. But look at this. He's already got a couple of car lengths, probably 2 car lengths ahead of the likes of McIntyre, Brennan and Newsham. 3 drivers we often talk about for championship glory, which is fantastic to see. So, yeah, it will be a bit interesting if we have a little bit of a chat with the podium sitters, because right now the podium sitters, Elliott and Stapleford, interesting to see what they say in front of each other. Dan Zelos will probably be quite happy in second place.
I think the gloves are definitely going to be off in the commentary, but let's see if we can have any fireworks in the commentary box.
Yeah, I was going to say, you love a little bit of controversy, you do, Dave. I try and keep everything a little bit straight and narrow. You don't care, do you?
Oh no, a bit of Plato and Neely.
Exactly. Get the fans in, get them engaged with this action here. And if you're not engaged with the action, I don't know what on earth you're watching. This has been utterly sensational stuff for the first 2 races of the touring car series of the League of Champions. And as we said before, it's getting to the point where we need to nominate our driver of the day. We've got to do it within the next 1 minute and 20 seconds. So please do, if you haven't already, drop a name in the comments section of who you think is probably going to be winning driver of the day for you personally. And me and Dave will have a chat to them on this final lap, because we are now on the final lap with Dan Zelos shaping down Robbie Stapleford. For me, I think Scott Bugner's up there. I think Dan Zelos is up there as well for driver of the days. Unfortunately, Andy Duran has just dropped down out to the top 10. So I feel like those 2 drivers are really putting a stake on. And to be honest, Dave, if Dan Zelos can pull off a win here, it's going to be ambitious, but that would just seal it for me.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely putting the pressure on Robbie Stapleford here for the win. You know what? I reckon Dan might have enough of a head on himself here to go, you know what, I'll have a look, but I'm not going to chance any contact or anything like that. You know, he's a very mature driver, and yeah, for me, Dan Zelos, whether he makes this pass or not, it is my vote for driver of the day. The way he's drove his way through race 1 without any contact, picking his passes, very calculated, and he's done the same in race 2 and found his way incredibly fast. Remember how fast he got up to P4 there at the start of the race, and he found himself in P2 just through patience and nice consistent pace. Fantastic drive for me.
And not only that, he's done it with a very limited amount of practice, isn't he? And he's still being aggressive on Robbie Stapleford here as he tries to look around the outside as well. Dan Zelos, he's going to try and get the cut back, but Stapleford's done a good job of defending. He's all over the exit curve, though, as he comes up for the final time. This is to the final corner here, and it's Stapleford going very defensive. Zelos trying to get on the outside. Elliott looking for a little bit of a sniff if there's a mistake here, but they're going side by side. Zelos making up another track on the apex there as they come across the line for the final time. It's Stapleford just of Zelos, a fantastic 0.3 of a second. It looked a lot closer from our perspective. Ryan Elliott comes across to finish off the podium. I'll tell you what, Scott Bugner in 4th place held off the attacks of McIntyre, Brennan and Newsham, who finished in that order as well. Paolo Tempera, new to the grid for this League of Champions series anyway, did brilliantly well in 8th place, picked up some real good pace, and we're hoping to see him a little bit quicker next time. Andy Dorman and 9th, Luke Weston, that's at the top 10, but I tell you what, Dave, I'm breathless after that. Stapleford, Zelos really gave it his all. The Bugner, McIntyre, Brennan, Newsham debacle, that was basically all race. Obviously, Elliott and Stapleford on each other. I tell you what, this evening's been fantastic.
Wow. That what a last set of corners that was. I said Dan wouldn't go for the move, but I tell you what, he set that up and he was going to go for that move whether it was open or not, wasn't he? But you notice he didn't just try and drive through Robbie's car there. It was the little nudge here and there to get them side by side, but it wasn't just an outright takeout. And for me, yes, it's a hard racing, but I tell you what, as a commentator, that is what I love to see, and it made it so exciting to watch. I didn't know who was going to take that then.
Yeah, I think Rebecca Dawson's put in the chat for Scott Bugner to be driver of the day. He's on fab to keep the pace across both races in a tough pack. It's true. I mean, as I said, I think for me it was between Scott Bugner and Dan Zelos. I think just because Zelos came in, he's obviously done a very measured job with 2 podiums. We know he said it's not all about podiums and all this, that and the other, but it is a very measured job. I think he only had about half an hour of practice in total, and the likes of Ryan Elliott did 164 laps in practice, and Zelos came in with about 10. So when you look at it like that, I think driver of the day, from my perspective, Dave, I think you agree with me as well that Delos is going to be going home with a nice Power Max Valeting kit, but that doesn't mean that Scott Bugner won't go home next week with one. You know, it's driver of the day each and every week. The Valeting pack is up for grabs, and
exactly, and I could be wrong. I think Scott Bugner actually has already won driver of the day once. So yet again, and a driver that is yet again shown time after time, you know, driving standards that really, you know, is good enough for driver of the day. So fair play, Scott. I'm sure when you watch back this, you know, it was a very hard decision, but fantastic driving. And if that's going to be the standard that you continue to bring in this championship, wow.
Yeah, it's those sort of races where it's amazing to be a commentator, to be honest, and watch that sort of action. But I bet it's probably not as good as actually driving the cars. And Dave, you can speak to the 3 drivers who have sort of given us so much entertainment throughout this entire race. And you can start with the podium sitters.
Yeah, I will do indeed, and I must warn the drivers, we don't have a beep machine, so please no swearing. We want this to remain family friendly on YouTube. Ryan, I can imagine you're probably not particularly happy with the driving there, but still a podium position to get you some points back on the board after race 1 incidents.
Yeah, I think if it was caught on the stream, you can all understand why I'm not very happy with that one. It was quite frankly disgusting, to be honest. Like, I thought I'd done so well taking about 4 seconds out of Robbie, and he just, honestly, that was horrific. But I might as well go out there and say, well done Dan Zelos, because he's going to win the race. There's no way Robbie's keeping that win in my
I
eyes.
think
But
it's fair to say it's probably going to be one left for the clerks of the office. But on the whole, you've got to be fairly impressed with the points haul still, Ryan. You know, you managed to recover it to a point, and to be fair, even when you went off track, you only lost one position, which, you know, was a good hope by yourself not to put it in the wall.
yeah, exactly, mate. It's all about points. Points make prizes at the end of the day, and you know, it's only round one. I'm not trying to. I mean, I think I set the world alight. My pace proved that I was the fastest person there, but just didn't go my way today. But yeah, did well done to everyone else. I know there was some good racing, especially, you know, Dan Zelos came through both races really well.
Yeah.
I just think it's really let down VRRC and especially Zancho as well. Should
Well,
be disappointed with that.
I've got to point out that currently you're still sat second in the championship points, 1 point behind Dan Zelos, who's currently winning the championship. So it's definitely still all to play for. We go to our P2 man, and I'm going to say driver of the day, Dan Zelos. You can't be too miserable with the way that went today, can you?
I think I'm still catching my breath and making sure I'm actually awake and not dreaming this. I am very, very happy. I have to put it out and say that Ryan had much more pace than me today, and you may have called it on stream, you may not have, but a little bit of strategy came into play in that race, and I did let Ryan pass. I knew he was quicker than me, and I knew we could go together to catch Robbie. So without Ryan in that race, I possibly wouldn't be whereabouts I am. But no, we had some great racing. The first few laps were amazing. I don't know how I got through that many cars like I did, but throughout 90% of that race, there was great fair racing, and you know, I would have loved to have just got it over the line, but wasn't quite to be today.
Yeah, it wasn't quite enough. I've got to comment on that last move. You know, I said, I think Dan's got a fair measured head. I don't think he's going to chance putting up the inside of Robbie here. And then we saw probably one of the most determined moves. But still, you know, yes, there was a bit of contact, but you didn't just drive his car off the road. You know, you wanted still a fair fight to the line. And fair play for that. We'll jump straight to Robbie Stapleford, taking the win in race 2. You know, that is the recovery you needed, isn't it, after race 1?
Yeah, great recovery. Yeah, nothing much to say really.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you know, yes, there was the collision with Ryan. It was hard racing, but you know, that move by Dan Zelos at the end, you must have just been praying that you got your gears perfect there coming out the last corner.
Oh yeah, I remember last time in the official touring car at Croft, we had exactly the same thing, and he just got me, and I just got him this time, so I had a bit of flashbacks from then.
Yeah, well, fantastic racing there, Robbie. Congratulations on the point haul, and we're looking forward to seeing what we can do in round 2.
Yeah, see you guys.
And that was our podium sitters there. And to be honest, David was probably quite lucky we went to Dan Zelos in the middle of that one. That he broke up a few of the interviews there, because I thought it was all going to kick off, and luckily everybody kept it cleaner in terms of language, and potentially they did in the race. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, for us as spectators, it was pretty sensational, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't quite like real life where you feel like you've got to stand in between the two and hold them apart. But, you know, I was quite grateful that Dan Zelos was in the middle there just to take a break from it. But, yeah, you know what? It was frantic racing, but it just shows, you know, these drivers are incredibly passionate about trying to bring home the best results possible. And, you know, the racing is hard and frantic. And you know what? That is what motorsport is about at the end of the day. That passion is what drives results, it what drives practices, and it makes it so rewarding when the things do come together.
Yeah, exactly that. And well, where are we off to next? We can bring up the calendar on our screen now, as you can see the championship actually. Dan Zelos with 32, Ryan Elliott with 31, Jordan Brennan with 30, Jack Mac 28, and Robbie Stapleford with 27, and Scott Buckner, you know, into 24. Good performance from him, and I'm sure he can probably move his way up the order a little bit further on. There we go. The one I never pronounce, or I've never learnt how to pronounce, Magione, I'm going for, is the second round of the touring cars, followed by Imola and the Red Bull Ring. And to be honest, if they're anything like Donington, you do not want to miss it. Hopefully all the drivers will put in some plenty of practice, and the practice server will be able to bring you all this sort of updated times as well. But if you want to know what on earth sort of happened, and you're just joining us now, make sure that you're going back to watch it when the videos are uploaded to the YouTube and Facebook channels through VRRC as well. Dan, I suppose we've got to close off this stream. It's a bit of a shame too, because it's been so brilliant to watch. What are your final thoughts from Donington and maybe going forward to Magione?
I'm going to go back and watch the race. No, honestly, you know what? If that's the racing that's going to entail the rest of this championship, you know, when the ballast is applied, you know, which is only to the top 6 in this championship, remember, you know, I tell you what, this is going to be one that you're not going to be able to call until that final race going towards the light, and then we might have some idea. But yeah, I imagine the clerks might have a busy week looking at a few things here. So I'd imagine the championship standings might have a little bit of a jig around, but hopefully not too much. And yeah, we'll see if we can get the drivers back on the same page.
Yeah, exactly. So if you do want to catch what happens next time out, that you can keep it pinned for the same time wherever you're watching this from. It's not necessarily the VRRC Facebook or YouTube channels, although that might be where you're watching it from. It's also hosted on a whole host of different platforms and on Facebook pages as well throughout the entire season. So if you're watching it, wherever you're watching it from, make sure you're following that exact channel to make sure that you're here next week, 7:15. My name's been Jack Oliphant. Dave Marshall's been alongside me. The cameras have been by Tom O'Farrell, and we'll see you later. Bye.
The inside of coats. Barker gets too heavily involved. And that's white-headed coats.